Hello, patriots, American citizens. I do appreciate you being part of this channel. I am James Detroit, and man, I just finished up a lovely dinner with my bride, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to take time out and I'm going to talk about a few of the things that are on my mind right now. Our business to business meeting today, we got a chance to spend some time nurturing relationships. We did get a visit from our local state rep. It's nice to see officials, and without threatening, we just simply said, hey, we're paying attention. We're watching how everybody votes and acts during this time. Because one of our concerns with our elected officials, because here's the bottom line. Our local officials are our first line of defense against an overreaching state government. Our local officials are our first line of defense against an overreaching federal government. And what we've witnessed as far as overreach from a state perspective and a national perspective is it's never before seen. So we are paying attention more so than ever, all of us. That's what part of this revolution is. Our eyes are open and we realize what they tell us is not actually what's happening. So let's get to a few of the things that a lot of this circus stuff, and I don't even know because I haven't turned the television on once this week other than to watch the Super Bowl. And I couldn't tell you who the halftime guy was. I couldn't tell you anything about a lot of the commercials because I guess I'm just not cool enough. I guess you got to be more cool than me to know who any of those people are, to know what any of that stuff is about. The challenge for me is to really be able to understand what reality is. So Larry, you made a comment this week about what is reality? How do I know if something is real unless I actually see it? That's a great point. And if we look at the number of doctors, not the ones that are on mainstream media, but on channels like this, the number of doctors that are coming out and talking about no one needs to die from SARS-CoV-2, the pathogen. Nobody needs to. As a matter of fact, it's 99.99% non-deadly across the board. It's 95% non-deadly for the people in the small age group that are most vulnerable. 95% non-deadly. But what we don't know is what a lot of these doctors are talking about. Not only the Great Barrington Declaration, please look that up, make yourself aware of it. The Great Barrington Declaration. Herd immunity is a fact. This isn't a plan. This isn't putting together an agenda. Herd immunity is truth. And when you hear exactly what these doctors are stating, not from mainstream media, they don't get the platform. That's what we should all be aware of. I made reference earlier this past year, but on this channel, about James Earl Ray. It was brought up today at the business to business meeting about Lee Harvey Oswald. The point is, that what they have been telling us for years is not the truth. It's a version, it's a story about some events that took place, but the truth is never in the official story. Why do I talk about James Earl Ray? No one in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s inner circle believed James Earl Ray killed Dr. King at the time of that shooting. No one. To this day, none of the living family members of Dr. King's family believe that James Earl Ray killed Dr. King. James Earl Ray was a fugitive who, if you read the story, I believe he had left the country and was captured in either somewhere in Ontario or maybe in London. It was in an international airport outside of this country. He was held and interrogated for about a year, every single day, in prison. And after a year went by, he signed a confession on the stipulation that he would not be put to death and that his family would be financially compensated. Does that sound like somebody that killed Dr. King? And why would we so easily believe that? Because it is easy. It is easy to believe what they told us about Lee Harvey Oswald. Sure, he was a communist-loving extremist. But that doesn't mean, especially if you look at how and when he could have taken the shot, if he did take the shot. The AIDS epidemic. Spend some time reading about Dr. Fauci's involvement with the AIDS epidemic. And how does that become an epidemic? How does syphilis run through the black males of Tuskegee, Alabama, for what was going to be a predetermined period of time, but then ended up being decades? Untreated. Just so we can see how it affects the human being. The human race. The human race. I was born the same year Dr. King was assassinated. I have heard his dream my entire life. And I have always believed in that dream. The content of a man's character, of a human being's character, not the color of their skin, ever. I've always believed in that, and I've always believed that we, humans, the human race, one race, our Creator, our God. I've always looked at everything from that perspective. I appreciate Morgan Freeman. I appreciate Thomas Sowell. I appreciate Walter E. Williams. May he rest in peace. Bless his heart. I appreciate Clarence Thomas. I appreciate Justice Clarence Thomas. I appreciate many others. Professor Riley at Kentucky State University. Dr. Swain, Vanderbilt. All of these people, I appreciate the fact that they talk about American history. They're Americans. When you differentiate it into black history, you are degrading the history of each of those individuals. Here we are in February, the month dedicated for that. I love in my heart for my fellow Americans, my fellow humans. And I think that it is important for us to really embrace the importance of our humanity. Let me get off this kick because it seems to be, man, buzzkill. Here it is Friday night. And let's get into something a little bit more interesting. If you look up the legal term of inciting an insurrection, not even a chance. Not even a chance it can be legally seen as that. So I get Yahoo. I read the Yahoo Mail every day because I want to know what the other side's thinking. I also get the Daily Signal. I get the Epoch Times. I read Mike Adams. I hear other things. All of this is an attempt to try to get your attention away from the reality. What's the reality? Well, we'll go back to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. The reality is it's 99.99% non-deadly. Law of large numbers. That's the facts. But James, haven't you had anybody that you know of that has died from this? Well, maybe. I do know of a person that's actually close to us. We have love in our hearts for the family. They say he died from this. And let's say that he did. We're all going to die from something. We've talked about this on this channel before. The idea that this is far deadlier than the flu, and that's what I would consider otherwise intelligent individuals are trying to tell me, that it's far deadlier than the flu. And I just refer them back to Dr. Fauci's interviews prior to it becoming a political issue. You have to remember that we are in our 18th month with this in this country. 18 months. The blood samples taken in our coastal areas where a lot of travel occurs from China to here is showing that this virus was here in October of 2019. And it might have been before. That's just the blood samples that we have. Antibodies in blood samples that were stored in November and December. Antibodies, that means they've already had the virus. They created the antibodies. It was already here. We are being lied to at every turn. I remember watching. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me finish the thought. I'm sorry. Dr. Fauci was talking about, he was on on the Ingram Angle, talking to her. There were other interviews. But in January, he's talking about this being one of the deadliest flu seasons in a long time. He was not expecting it to be the Spanish flu of 100 years ago, but talking about how it could compare to the Hong Kong flu of 69. We had a pretty severe flu epidemic in 76. Remember, folks, when they start scaring you with all of these variants, viruses are continually growing into something else. They're having variants all the time. So we have different flu variants. Viruses have different variances. That's a constant battle between life and death. The human race has always been battling viruses. Bacteria is a little bit different, but here's what we find out with this particular virus, this pathogen. Yes, they're telling us it is a respiratory inflammation virus, and yet now they're wanting to start swabbing our asses because the bacteria in our anal secretions can tell us whether or not we're going to have a bacterial infection. I'm not signing up for any of this invasion of my person. I'm not signing up for the test. I'm not signing up for the vaccine, especially the vaccine. Let's think about this, because there are some doctors that have been canceled. They've been censored. They get out there on a channel like this and then they get eliminated. And these only get a chance. If you can download these, I would be thankful. If you can download these to a separate area to where it's not part of this library, I would be thankful. But people get canceled. And according to the CDC's own numbers, the 400,000 people that have passed away, according to COVID numbers, 6% of them are attributed actually to COVID. So that means 24,000 people died because of this pathogen. A common flu would be 35 to 60,000 people in America. So we are significantly less. So for all of my otherwise intelligent associates out there that keep telling me this is way deadlier than the flu, that's not according to the numbers from the CDC, not me, from the CDC. The idea, I'm going to switch gears here again. The idea that the Department of Justice is investigating SpaceX and Elon Musk for hiring too many American-born employees. The idea that mandatory testing and vaccinations for SARS-CoV-2 would take place. The idea that we're going to continue to give in these stimulus legislation pieces billions of dollars to foreign countries when we have more people dying from opioid, depression, mental illness, suicides, homeless on the street than ever before in our history. That we're going to continue to give money to other countries when we can't take care of our own citizens. The idea that we are going to not honor the sovereignty of our nation and talk about a one world. These are things that we're going to discuss more in the future. But this is crazy to me. This is insanity. And so Idiocracy is a movie. If you haven't seen it, watch it again. If you've already seen it, watch it again. Remember how insane Idiocracy suggests the United States of America will become, and yet here we are. We're headed down that path. Listen, I'm James Detroit, and for now, I'm out.